Ghost-type Pokemon are spooky and mysterious, and it would be challenging if not impossible to explain their essence with science. So today we are going to explain what kind of ghosts each of the ghost-type Pokemon are, or what their inspirations are. And it should be noted that in Pokemon, being a certain type doesn't necessarily mean a Pokemon is that thing. The best example being Rock and Steel-type Pokemon. Some Rock and Steel-type Pokemon aren't actually made of rock or steel, rather they may just have an outer shell that is as hard as rock or as hard as steel, hence the typing. So, some of these ghost Pokemon may not actually be ghosts, but just have some ghost-like properties. But without further ado, let's answer the question, what kinds of ghosts are the Pokemon, and which ones are not ghosts? And where else to start but the original ghost? Ghastly, coming from gas, and ghastly, meaning frighteningly ugly, and even ghast, a type of ghost. Seems obvious. It's based on a ghast. But it's not quite that simple. Ghast was never clearly defined as any sort of being, and it shows in various other mediums. Ghasts in Minecraft, for example, share this spooky, ghostly theming, but ghasts in Dungeons & Dragons are just more powerful ghouls, as are the ghasts in Final Fantasy. No, rather, despite the name, ghastly more closely resembles a will-o'-the-wisp, or a ghost light, the Japanese equivalent being an onibi. These spirits come in many forms and designs, but most commonly are gaseous spirit flame balls, sometimes with a face inside. Haunter, then, is a ghost which literally haunts, and it has an affinity for licking others with its gaseous tongue. This aspect may mean it's based on a Dila from Philippine mythology, a monstrous spirit with a long vampiric tongue, which also licks things constantly. But Haunter also has design elements that point to it being based on a specter, a specific type of ghost known for being one of the types which haunt most actively. Rather than being a lost soul or wandering spirit, specters seek out victims to haunt, and tend to be portrayed with evil faces and creepy hands. This is especially hitting as Haunter's name in French is literally Spectre. Gengar's name is frequently said to be from Doppelgänger, a German English word for a ghostly double, or someone who just looks like you through supernatural means. And while Gengar is the most humanoid of its evolution chain, thanks to the feet, that wouldn't be a terrible conclusion. But Gengar may also come from the Japanese gen, meaning phantom or illusion, or the Dutch GENGAR, this word, meaning revenant, a visible ghost or animated corpse that is believed to have been revived from death to haunt the living, and most often takes the form of a person. The word GENGAR also comes from root words meaning to walk again, and specifically refers to feet and walking, which Gengar adds to this evolutionary line. Which brings us to Trevenant, which based on the name, which is perfectly fitting, would also be a revenant, though one that is taking the form of a tree. When you consider Trevenant's origins as a rotten tree stump that the spirit of a lost child possessed and then became a phantump, which floats, it makes a good bit of sense that its next evolution gains feet, as being a revenant means to literally walk again, from child to grown tree. Phantump then is a phantom, as the name suggests. Or is it? While today, phantom is used as another word for a generic ghost, phantoms tend to be more illusionary than actually there, be it there physically or even spiritually. As such, phantoms have no will of their own. They are just something to be sensed. They are seen as an illusionary spell, or are golems made of ectoplasm, the material that ghosts are supposedly made of. But none of those fit with phantump, so phantom here may be simply due to the generic nature of the word. And so we turn to the Japanese name of phantump, Bokure, meaning wood spirit, and an alternate way of saying kodama. A kodama is a small tree spirit. Some say they are spirits which reside in trees, while others say they are the spirits of the trees themselves, and if their home forest is threatened, they may curse whomever is attacking it, much like how Trevenant will curse those who cut trees in its territory. And having mentioned a golem once, let's cover Golett and Golurk next. Both are clearly golems, entities from Hebrew mythology. While originally made of clay, fantasy has expanded them to being capable of being made of anything. Rocks, armor, buildings, fire, all kinds of goodies. Just add some spirit energy to some runes scratched into an object, and you're good to go. Let's cover the other ghost ground type while we're at it, sandy ghast. Literally, a sandy ghast. Though, as we covered in the beginning, ghast has become more of another general term for ghosts and ghouls. Rather, in the case of sandy ghast and its evolution Palo-Sand, we have a spirit which more closely resembles an earth elemental or sand golem. There may have also been inspiration from the Hawaiian ghost crab, a crab that can change its color for camouflage to appear invisible and often buries itself in the sand and drags down any prey that stumbles near it, just like these Pokemon that so far are only found in Alola, which is based on Hawaii. And I mean, ghost crab, duh. Otherwise, it's just a generic spirit with an affinity for the earth element, an earth elemental, if you will. Now, from a ghost deep underground to one high in the sky, Drifloon and Drifblim. Both of these Pokemon are based on floating objects, a balloon and a blimp, or hot air balloon. And both of their Pokedex entries state that for the most part, they are just wandering around, drifting from place to place, wherever the winds happen to take them. Drifloons will sometimes try to take children along with them, but more often than not, they get taken by the children places, just drifting along. These aspects fit with the wandering spirit type of ghost, usually the soul of someone who has died unknowingly. Now, they aimlessly wander wherever it was that they died, or wherever their spirit happens to float to, just like these Pokemon, aimlessly drifting where the air flows. Another floaty ghost, Misdreavus, brings us back into the spook zone. This Pokemon is known for scaring people by suddenly appearing and wailing loudly. It feeds off their fear. Misdreavus may be a combination of various types of ghosts. Let's start with the Rokurokubi or Nukekubi. They appear as floating heads of maidens at night and drain blood for sustenance. They also are known for causing quite the fright by screaming loudly, which gets their victims' hearts pumping faster, easier to get blood from them. But another possibility is the LANGSUIR in Indonesian mythology. It's a female revenant that is able to detach her head and have it fly around. Misdreavus then evolves into Mismagius, a sort of ghostly mage, witch hat and all. And besides the added witch and magic spellcrafting theme, Mismagius still is basically a wailing revenant based on the LANGSUIR. And speaking of witches, a common theme during Halloween, let's move on to jack-o'-lanterns with Pumpkaboo and Gourgeist, both of which are based on jack-o'-lanterns, which were initially said to be placed outside of your house to keep bad spirits away, ward them off during the autumn months when they are at their strongest. In the case of these Pokemon, it is said that they have spirits trapped inside of their gourd after they happened to wander in there. And then Geist from Gourgeist comes from Geist, or Poltergeist, a specific type of ghost known for haunting a specific person or family, and they tend to be loud and have telekinesis. But besides Gourgeist being said to sing its curses, nothing seems to scream Gourgeist actually being a poltergeist. So the word Geist or Geist here may again be used merely in its generic ghostly form. Another part of Halloween is of course costumes, and who could possibly best the costume by Mimikyu? It's like those ghost costumes made out of bed sheets. Mimikyu is a little ghost fairy that gets jealous of all of the love and attention Pikachus get, so it made its own costume and now wears it around. It's pretty cute. We do get to see what they look like under the costume in the anime, but it's just a black cloud with sparkly eyes. But it is also said that those who see its true form become overwhelmed with terror and die. Well, that escalated quickly. While Mimikyu does not directly reference any ghosts immediately, it does pull from various eldritch horrors. A common trope for these horrors is that they are beings from another plane of existence, a higher dimension, and our minds are incapable of understanding them. So if we were to ever see the true form of it, our brains would break, our minds crack, and it's very likely we would go insane or even die. Just like the true form of Mimikyu. After all, some say ghosts exist in a parallel plane to our own, another dimension per se. Another Pokemon, or rather Ultra Beast, which has inspirations in the Eldritch, is UB Burst, Blacephalon. I have a whole video explaining this connection here, but long story short, it may be inspired by the popular horror monster Pennywise the Clown, which has its inspirations in mind-blowing eldritch myths from another realm. Giratina is also from another realm, the Distortion World, a world of antimatter and shifting gravity, a world where our laws of physics don't apply, much like a spirit world. In fact, being a ghost would also mean you don't have to listen to gravity, which may be where Giratina's ghost type comes from, because other than that explanation, there isn't much else to go on. It has ghost properties, but it is not actually a ghost. Mars Shadow is a little martial artist that lives inside of shadows, sinking and dwelling within them. This, along with its more humanoid shape, makes it reminiscent of a shadow person, a mysterious type of ghost or shade that are often just fleeting shadows we see in our peripherals, never truly in direct sight. And as some say, they are the cause of sleep paralysis as they approach. Hoopa is very reminiscent of a jinn, a Middle Eastern spirit elemental similar to a genie. They are not necessarily good or evil, but they do tend to be mischievous and meddle in human affairs, just like Hoopa. Lunala is the Pokemon emissary of the moon, and she devours light, which is a very spooky and common trait of various ghosts, though I'm inclined to believe that Lunala is not a ghost herself, but rather has ghostly powers. In cultures and mythologies all over the world, the moon rules over the spirit realm, and an eclipse opens a portal to the spirit world, a world that would be ruled over by an entity like Lunala. And when the moon comes out, the lights come on. Litwick is a haunted candle, which is a very common trope in horror stories that take place in mansions. Same goes for haunted lamps and chandeliers, with lampant and chandelure. Their blue ghostly flames reveal their origins as either will-o'-the-wisps or hitodamas, little blue fires that burn their spirit away, or the spirits of others. But for a more modern approach to lighting, perhaps a rotom could help, an electric ghost able to go into the circuits of electronics and control them. Basically, a small electronic poltergeist. The Honage line is another line of ghosts inside of objects, but this time, it's spirits of warriors from long ago taking over their swords. Very straightforward here. Delmise is the same, a sailor who died at sea and whose spirit was trapped at the bottom of the ocean. It then possessed seaweed and began grabbing the parts from a sunken ship. Also in these deep depths are Frillish and Jellicent, two more Pokemon which I believe are not actually ghosts, but rather jellyfish with ghost properties. They are said to live around sunken ships and will sink boats themselves, and that their bodies are made mostly of water. Their ghost attributes they have are likely because of these watery bodies. They can almost phase through things as if they were ghosts because they are mostly, if not entirely, liquid. And from the ocean we arise to the Alolan Islands. Alolan Marowak is a step above that of a normal Marowak. Rather than just sulking in the loss of its mother, it gains a vengeful spirit, and ghost powers to go with it, as ghostly flames that cannot be put out form on the ends of its bone. Its vengeful spirit burns, and burns at the souls of others. The ghost form or sensu style of Oricorio has the bird dance as a traditional Japanese fan dancer, a dance which not always but fairly often enough would be used as a means of respecting one's ancestors, hence the ghost typing. There may also be an aspect of Japanese spirit mediums involved here, someone who can conjure up ghosts, meaning Oricorio isn't a ghost itself, but again, has ghost abilities. And the same goes for another Alolan bird. Decidueye is based on the pueo owl, a Hawaiian owl which is a symbol of many ancestral spirits. Also, owls are said to be able to fly as ghosts in the night, flying without making a single sound. Quite the ghostly ability. On top of this, deciduous trees, what Decidueye's name is based on, are the trees that die in the winter, but like a ghost, come back. And from three not ghosts, we now go on to what is most certainly a ghost, Spiritomb. It is said that Spiritomb is a conglomeration of 108 spirits trapped inside of a keystone, which is inspired from a Chinese legend where 108 demons are sealed inside of a keystone. Pretty on the nose there, Game Freak. Another obvious spirit is Yamask, a Pokemon said to be a ghost risen from the grave. It carries a mask of the face that it once wore while alive, and it retains at least one memory from its life. It's based loosely on the Egyptian Ba, the spirit to come out of your tomb when you die. This Egyptian root makes more sense when you consider Yamask's evolution, Cophagregus, which is obviously an Egyptian sarcophagus with accursed ghostly arms coming out of it. Pretty straightforward. Then from the dry deserts to the frozen forests, we have Frostlass, which is directly a Yuki-onna, an ice spirit taking the form of a woman from Japanese folklore, hence the Japanese-looking garb. And speaking of garb, Shuppet is a little ghost with a small black sheet over it. It resembles a teruteru bozu, a little Japanese spirit charm. Shuppet also feeds off of negative emotions, which is a common trope among various forms of yokai, Japanese spirits. Bayonet is said to be a doll that was discarded and forgotten, and it now seeks revenge against its owner. This would make it a Tsukomagami, a yokai that was once a tool or a toy, an inanimate object that came to life due to strong spiritual emotions within it. Sableye is based on the Hopkinsville Goblin, an American alien sighting that is extremely popular in Japan for some reason. It eats gems and lives in caves, and it seems like it itself is not a ghost. However, it is said to be able to pull spirits from bodies, so it has its fair share of spirit powers. Shedinja is another interesting one, as there is no clear answer. It's based on the leftover shell from a cicada, but it also gains a halo. Some have said it resembles a guardian angel, and it was the armor of the bug beforehand, or perhaps this is the husk of a lifeless body wanting a soul, as it is said that if you look into the hole in its back too long, your soul will be absorbed into it, which is similar to the Duskull line, or at least its evolutions. But as for Duskull itself, it's pretty much the ghostliest of the ghosts. It is able to phase through walls and hide in shadows. It also loves to scare people. It fits the shadow ghost category perfectly. Its evolution Dusklops is hollow, just wrappings around a void, and it is said that it absorbs will-o'-the-wisps and other such ghosts. And if you were to see inside of Dusklops, your soul would be absorbed too. Being vaguely mummy-like, it may be inspired from the idea of a mummy's curse. If you open its tomb and look inside, you will die shortly after. Perhaps even the empty husk of the body casing is looking for a soul to fill it. Perhaps yours will do. Then its evolution DUSKNOIR is also very similar to a shadow ghost, though it is known for finding lost souls, absorbing them, and then taking them home to the spirit realm and releasing them, helping them find their way. This then makes DUSKNOIR the Grim Reaper of Pokemon. People often make the Grim Reaper out to be a scary antagonist, but really, it's just there to help you find your way to the spirit world. It's your time. Grimmy will help. And interestingly, this dangly blip on DUSKNOIR is an antenna, as DUSKNOIR is able to read radio waves coming from the spirit world. Many ghost chasers will use radio signals to detect where ghosts are, after all. So, now you know all about the origins and inspirations of the ghost-type Pokemon, and why they happen to be ghost-type, and how some of them aren't actually ghosts at all, but rather just have some ghost powers. It's pretty neato. So go tell your friends, show them this video. They'll be glad you did. And why not help support this channel to keep it going? Loads of links in the description, all sorts of options. Thank you so much. And until next time, please remember to never stop using that noggin.